Confetti. Yo, Justin, where do you get your financial advice?
Reddit. What about you?
Reddit? YouTubers. Um, so this is kind of a funny story, but I when I first got my big tech job, I started making like big tech money, and my parents asked me how much money I was making, and they wanted me to pay rent. I was living at home, and they wanted me to pay rent. At first, they were like $2,000 a month. But given my parents have a big house living in Cupertino, one of the most expensive places to live in the world. I have like two rooms to myself. So it makes sense. But I was like so mad because, first of all, I felt like I started my career like a year later because I went to master's. So all my friends who were the same age as me were all working in tech a year before I did. So I felt poor. So I was like kind of sad that I had to pay $2,000 a year to my parents who have already paid off their mortgage, like rent. I was like really, really
Wait, was
mad. I
it
had to tell them,
2000 a year or 2000 a
no,
month?
a month.
Okay, 2000 a month is kind of crazy. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, living at home with my parents.
So,
And they already paid off the mortgage. They don't need the money. They did well in life. They didn't even need the money, but they wanted to teach me responsibility. So I got really mad. I negotiated down with them to 1,200 amount. So for the next year, I was still like, living with my parents, paying $12,000 a month of rent before I moved out. Um, a year and a half later. But that made me like really want to make more money because like, oh my god, $2,000 a month. It seems like a lot of money, especially I just like, I don't know, I probably had like 30K in a bank account when I graduated college like 5 years ago. 30, 40K, only 30, 40K. So and then worked a big tech job, started making I think 106K a year before taxes. But I just got my full-time job offer, and after my internship, I think I had about, trying to remember, I think I had about 60K, 50, 60K in my bank account after like an internship. Um, so that felt like a lot, like $2,000 a month. That is like, I don't know, I can't do math. Two divided by 60. That is like a decent amount of my net worth, you know. So I was like kind of sad. I mean, this is just like my liquid money, not counting like whatever I have in a 401k that I didn't know I had at that time. So I was like really mad. So I started like, this was 2020 Grace, 2020, 2021 Grace. um I started looking at advice on how do I make my money work for me. And I started reading books like Rich Dad Poor Dad, 4 Hour Work Week, started building design buddies, started doing a lot of brand deals, started just like working really hard at my work, so I can get promoted, which I did get promoted. I ended up getting promoted like 3 times in 3 years. So I increased my salary from like 106K a year to 128K a year in 2 years when I was at EA, and I was working really hard. I was reading a lot of books and watching a lot of finance YouTubers. Most notably, my friend now, Rose Han, Invest with Rose. That was her YouTube channel back then, but she goes by her real name now. She's one of my good friends. I hang out with her in LA, and she gave me an early copy of her book that she's launching tomorrow called Add a Zero. So Rose is cool. Shout out to Rose and Graham Stephan, who is a real estate investor, and now he's like a really successful YouTuber, and Vivian too, who made Your Rich BFF. And I also like listened to her audiobook of Rich AF back in the day. And it was really good. I really liked all these finance YouTubers because I had that experience of like, oh my god, I have to pay rent and I feel poor. I am sad to like, how do I like, oh my god, I also got into crypto. So I started like filling up. I watched Rose's YouTube channel about how to set up a IRA. So I got like a high yield savings account. I also started filling up my Roth IRA, and then I also have my 401k from my employer, and I was also trying to do brand deals, and then ended up making seven figures of money. From like then 2021 to like now, because it all started with my parents making me pay rent, and I learned a lot from these YouTubers. And my key takeaway is like there's so many ways to make money. Like I watched Day of My Life as a Day Trader stuff. I learned about crypto, day trading, real estate from Graham Stephan. I also learned about like money mindset, trading stocks from your Rich BFF, and my Roth IRAs from Rose. And I was like, that's a lot of information. There's like so many ways to make money, and it all depends on what you want to do with your life. And I also had that realization that like I can spend all day looking at PE ratios and expense ratios and like stocks and following the market, or I could enjoy my money. So I became the kind of investor that invest in index funds, a lot of SPY. Not financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor, but this is just like my lifestyle and how I like to invest and diversify my skill sets and diversify my business and what I know best. But yeah, I'm also curious, like Justin, have you followed any finance YouTubers?
Yeah, I mean, I used to watch a ton of finance, like personal finance YouTubers, read the books, right? Everything from Tony Robbins to Tim Ferriss to every single thing in between, right? When it comes to how to manage your money and things like that. I think for me, my start to my career, because again, we're around pretty much the same age, right? Is a little bit different because I never took the full-time job. And I think it's a lot easier to manage your money when you have a full-time job compared to when you're an entrepreneur and you don't. Because, right, like there are things that you should be doing, especially when you live in a place like California and New York where it's very like high tax, whether it's like investing in your 401k to lower your tax bracket and everything in kind of in between. I didn't really have that as a entrepreneur growing up, right? Like, or at the start of my entrepreneurial career. So I'm going to be very honest with you. Like, I knew and I had a lot of this advice. I also studied finance in college. So I knew kind of like the inner workings and how finance worked. I did not use those very well in the way of preparing for my like future retirement. But to your point, like I use my money in a way to have a great time in like my early 20s. I would not trade that for anything in my life, right? Like it was great. We were traveling everywhere. We were making a lot of money, but we were spending a lot of money. And now, like those who are listening to the pod, like I did just take on a full-time job, and like I've been figuring out how can I play the game of W-2 employee and like get the most out of whether it's like a 401k and everything like that. But like I know all of the basics and the sort of game of personal finance. I just didn't execute on it, to be honest, during my early 20s. Which is there a little bit of a regret there? Sure, but at the same time, I feel like I didn't blow my money on like random things. Like we got to do a bunch of fun experiences that honestly I think helps me get to where I am right now in terms of getting the job offer and all that stuff.
That's a really good mindset because I feel like a lot of people they get. I feel like how much your net worth is not a measure of your self worth. And what's the point of making money if you don't enjoy it? Because for like half a year, I was just like worried about, oh my god, I need to like make as much money as possible. Even though I was doing well, I had a W-2 job, but I was just like I had to pay $2,000 of rent. But that was like literally my own. Well, I negotiated down to 1,200 actually. It was a whole thing. I've like read there's this negotiation book that was really famous, but I read that and I tried the tactics with my parents. I looked at like rent prices nearby and I negotiated down even more. I was like, oh, I'll do chores. I'll do more dishwashing. So I was just like, looked at similar one bedroom prices and just like, oh, add these chores to like negotiate it down. And I don't know. I was like, I was like, I think that was like the maddest I've ever been with my parents. Looking back, I totally understand. Like, even though I didn't, I also posted on Facebook and everyone was just like, what the fuck, your parents are wild. And then like half the comments were like that and half the comments were um like I'm paying this much of rent, like you're chilling, or just like they're just like Grace teaching me discipline and stuff. So I was a bit of a spoiled brat back then. So yeah, I was just like kind of mad, but
I mean, I
oh,
like I
mhm,
understand your parents wanting to charge you rent,
mhm,
but 2 grand is really high. Like I've
mhm,
heard of people charging like 300, 500, maybe $1,000, right? Like for rent. And this is like Northeast too, where it's just as expensive as California. Um, but like 2 grand is kind of crazy. Because like, yes, 100 and what it was 106K
yeah,
is like that's a lot of money. But like
mhm,
after you consider taxes, 401k, and everything like that,
70K.
like right? Exactly. So which is like your take home is like 3 or 4 grand probably, or like
Mhm.
4 or 5 grand probably a month, roughly, maybe a little bit more, depending on like how much you're contributing to your 401k and stuff like that. So like 2 grand is like probably 40 to 50% of your take home pay,
Mhm.
which is kind of crazy when you think about it. But like again, I understand the mindset. That was just very high, a very high number.
Yeah, you know what my parents called me? Um, their investment.
No, I think like I don't know what other cultures are, right? But I feel like especially in like Asian culture, that's kind of a thing, right? Where it's like, yes, I have all these kids, right? But like the thought process is the kid will take care of me later on in life, right? Now yours might have just thought of it a little bit earlier by paying rent and being your landlord. But like I feel like I've heard that definitely within my family and like other like friend families that typically are Asian. Um, Whereas I don't think I've really heard that with like my more American friends. But yeah,
Yeah, that's
it's
like not a
interesting.
concept in white culture to pay rent. Not a concept at all. I doubt it's a concept. But yeah, I want to dive into the finance YouTubers I've watched because I feel like finance is like probably the highest or one of the highest CPM niches if you want to do brand deals and one of the most like lucrative niches you can do as a creator. So have you heard of Graham Stephan?
Yeah, I love Graham Stephan, but what about him?
Yeah, Graham Stephan is awesome. Like he's actually based in he was born and raised in LA as well. He became a real estate agent at 18. So I don't think he went to college at all. And now he is 34 and he's making, this is just the internet says, average of $6 million a year. He has like 6 rental properties, and along the way he started a YouTube channel. And back when the CPMs were super high for finance, like for like 2017 to 2020, and I'm sure now too, he really diversified his income. Like I think he started with his like experience as a real estate investor and creating a YouTube channel. So now he makes YouTube. I watched so many of his videos about like stocks, crypto, real estate, um, learned the processes of like potentially buying a house. I don't even know if I want to buy a house anymore, but he does that stuff. Um, and what is really interesting about Graham is even though he made it really well in life, he still practices frugality. He makes his own coffee. He would never buy coffee from a grocery store or never buy coffee from a cafe. He makes his own coffee. So he had a CPG brand called Bankroll Coffee, which works really well. It's like coffee you can homebrew yourself, which is cool. But I just checked Bankroll Coffee. They deactivated their website, and their last post on Instagram was May 2024. So I'm so sad. I don't think they're going anywhere. But not only Graham. So Graham also, not only is he an amazing YouTuber, he also has a podcast about called Iced Coffee Hour that he runs. He does like I saw like he probably makes a lot of money from like affiliate links. He has like 1 million subscribers on just his podcast YouTube. Um, he also has a course called the Real Estate Agent Academy, about $500. It's like async course from his experience as a real estate agent. He has also a newsletter. His newsletter I've noticed is completely free. There's no paywall and there's no ads. But they say they kind of dive deeper into his YouTube videos, a way for him to like build deeper relationship with his fans. That probably buy his course, listen to his podcast, um, and all. But yeah, shout out to Graham. He's pretty cool. I feel like he really got wealthy by just leveraging his like past experiences and knowing how to make content and tell a great story, explain like these complicated financial concepts to ordinary people like me and you. Well, at least I think we're ordinary. Well, we're extraordinary, but like, 21-year-old Grace was just like a pleb, and I like the way Graham explained it.
Yeah, I think Graham he's a really good explainer, right? He's able to take very complex topics of finance and find a way to share it so that people like you and I can really understand it, if we want to pay attention to it. I think I'll take a step back and say that I used to really watch Graham a ton at the very beginning. I think his videos were great. And like the knowledge that he would share, whether it be around real estate, the markets, whatever it was, I think was really solid. I think Graham, and I mean this in the best way possible because, again, at the end of the day, you're running a business, right? And in this business world, views are king. I think finance niches are the best niche to build a content business around because the CPMs are so high. You don't need as many views to make an amazing sort of business around it, but we kind of covered that in the episode before this one. But because of that and the nature of how content works, of you're constantly trying to get more and more views on every single video, right? Because you want to continue to increase your income and things like that. I think creators like Graham, Andre Zick, all these types of personas, they have to kind of polarize their content in a way, not necessarily politically, but like polarize in terms of making crazy thumbnails or saying uh what's the word that I'm looking for? Exaggerating some things to make the thumbnail better or the title better and things like that. And in my opinion, it's a little bit misleading, but I understand why they need to do it, right? Because from their lens, the argument is if we don't say it this way, then no one's going to watch the video and no one's going to get this information. And so, yes, this information might only be the base of what people need, and it's not very um, like tactical and it doesn't get into the weeds, but that's not necessarily what people want to watch. And I will agree 100% with them. But I just think it's a weird sort of relationship that finance creators
Mm.
have with their audience because it's like they need to make their content wide enough to get good views, but the content that is good enough wide, like to reach that wide audience, isn't necessarily the content that is the greatest, because the content that is the greatest in terms of like actual impactful information is very dense and people don't want to watch that. So I have like this love-hate relationship with finance creators, but I understand the game. I get it.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like it's a good starting point for people who don't really understand personal finance. I feel like they really good at explaining. Speaking of Reddit, there's this Reddit. Do you know the big like Reddit flowchart about how to invest? There's like this
I've
big
never seen
flow.
this. No, no, no.
Oh, I'm like breaking on it. Someone design buddy sent it to me. That's how I learned how to have a high yield savings account and have an IRA. As my first step. It's like kind of like a flow chart, kind of like similar to the one you showed in our last episode, one of our last episodes about the Austin running community flow chart, the run club flow chart. But there's one about like how should you invest or what should you do? Like it's like, do you have an emergency fund? Like do you have a W-2 job or like what is your? Oh, they have like stuff like that. I'm blanking out the name, but maybe if you search personal finance Reddit, that's also a helpful resource for people. It's like crowdsourced by Reddit, but it's like reviewed by a lot of people. Um, Reddit
And
personal, I
so
think
while
it's
while you're trying to find it, so and that's why I have switched from personal finance YouTubers to Reddit. And the reason
mm,
I made that sort of switch is because I personally feel that Reddit gives me more an authentic view on things, whether it's the Fat Fire subreddit, personal finance, all these different sort of subreddits out there, but it gives me a more unbiased view than YouTube because these people are sharing this information, usually not trying to get anything in return. And if it gets views, it gets views. Like I don't look at like really investment advice on Reddit. Like I'm not scouring meme stocks and trying to find all that stuff on Reddit, but I think the overall information there of like the basics or the logistics of how to do things or little tips and tricks here and there seem to me at least to be a little more authentic because they're not trying to sell a product or they're not necessarily monetizing off of views, which I think again kind of taints some of the content out there when it comes to like TikToks or YouTube videos or anything like that.
that makes a lot of sense. People who post on Reddit are not in it for the views; they just want to share information. I'd on the personal finance YouTube, finance full chart, but also we can dive into this in a future episode. But I know a lot of companies are pulling their marketing resources into Reddit and Threads and Blue Sky, so they're gonna infiltrate Reddit, I think. But I need to do some more digging in that. But stay so like and subscribe for more. But let me show you the personal finance flowchart. Do do do. Okay. Ooh, wrong screen. Wrong screen. Wrong screen. Screen. Do do do. Why do I have so many windows screen? Oh wait, it's not sharing. Wait, sorry. It's not share. Do you see my screen?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. So just Google like Reddit personal finance flowchart. It is here. They have it in a bunch of places. So it's this flowchart. So this is like a very US centric one, by the way. So the phases like step 0, budget and reduce expenses, set realistic goals. Step 1, build an emergency fund. Step 2, employer sponsored matching fund. Step 3, pay down high debt, moderate interest debts. Step 4, savings for retirement and IRA, higher education expenses. Step 5, save more money from retirement. Step 6, save for other goals in advanced methods. So you first want to like create a budget. See like where your income is going, how much you're spending, how you want to prioritize, like pay your rent, mortgages. Your budget could like first go into your rent, mortgages, and then food, groceries, utilities, essential items, income earning expenses like your transportation, internet, etc., healthcare, minimum payments on all. Oh, for those who are not watching, we're also sharing screen. Make minimum payments on all debts, emergency fund, on non-essential bills. And yeah, so it's like kind of goes down between like each of the steps color coded and what you should do with it to build like a strong personal finance for yourself. Um, so yeah, it's pretty deep. I feel like it's like a good way for anyone to like get started and kind of like dive into more like
Yeah,
yeah.
and I think this chart is like this chart is probably 90% of what you need to understand personal finances.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you generally just follow this chart, you probably are better than I would argue you're probably better than 95% of people out there.
Mm-hmm.
And in my opinion, and I've worked in the finance space, you this is better than most advice that would be given to you by quote unquote financial advisors. And that's a whole nother industry that it's not really around the content space, but like all I will say about the person like the money manager sort of financial advisor space for the like average to even above average individual, like unless you are in that sort of millionaire, decamillionaire plus sort of mark, I don't personally think you need a financial advisor. I think you can learn most of it on your own, and the tactics that you could use are very simple. Now, when you start making a ton of money, I think that's a little bit different, and like you can try and like sort of avoid taxes with like tax law and things like that. But most financial advisors out there for the let's just call it people that are making less than 500K a year, they just trying to sell you insurance or a investment thing because they get a commission off of it. So
Mm-hmm.
if you do talk to a financial advisor, always ask them what their commission is on whatever product that they're trying to sell you. I have worked in that world. There are insurance products out there where you get 50% commission as a financial advisor. And a lot of these financial advisors aren't the actual people doing the money management. They are just a salesperson selling some sort of product. So again, I have been in the space, I have interned and I've worked in the money management space. If you are making a ton of money, again, great. Go out, find a money manager, that's worth it. But if you're making like less than 500K, I'd be very wary of people that are coming to you and saying that they are financial advisors and stuff like that.
Yeah, my mom told me to ask them how they make money, a financial advisor. My mom was almost pulled into an MLM before she realized it was an MLM. It was my friend's mom. It was called a WFG, um,
Is that
World
the World
Financial.
Financial Group, right? Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh my god. Yeah. Like my mom, like she knew it was an MLM, but it was my friend's parents that we used to go on play dates a lot. Now I know why we don't go to her house for play dates anymore. Um, um, Yeah, but I'm so cool with the girl who I was friends with in elementary school. But my mom's my friend from school's mom invited my mom to go to WFG. It was by Costco on North Expressway in the Bay Area. We were like go there and they were listening to like financial like seminars, and there's this dude named Rick or Rich. And he was like so intense in selling my mom into like selling life insurance. He's like, you gotta get life insurance. And I was just like a 7-year old kid. I'm just like, why the fuck is this dude so intense? I was just playing my Neopets on the computer as I was like waiting for my mom to like finish a seminar. I was like in that room. I was just like playing my Neopets, and I just like Rich was like, you gotta buy life insurance right now, sense of urgency. And my mom's like, oh, and she like kind of freaked out. She was just like, this is a fucking MLM. I'm fucking out of here. So we stopped hanging out with my friend Serena. So I'm sad. Um, yeah. So, anyways, that was a little tangent, but that's how my mom really like educated or like taught me about MLMs and warning me that like if anyone is urgently making you buy something, they're probably a scammer or like an MLM or a cult. So if you have like a financial advisor, talk to someone who says they're a financial advisor who makes you make a decision on the spot. They're probably a fraud. Like 99.9, I've tested. They're probably a fraud, like scammers. Like they're like, you need money right away. So yeah, so any urgency, gaslighting, urgency, yeah. Anyways, a little tangent. But yeah,
Yeah, I would
WFG,
just say
yeah.
like, yeah, I mean WFG, like I would just say always be wary of people in the finance world, right? Try
Mhm,
to, no matter who it is, right? It could be a YouTuber, it could be the financial advisor that you meet or whatever it is, right? Even the realtor, right? Always try to figure out sort of where their motivations, where their incentives are from. And again, the same way that I can't necessarily knock Graham Stephan for creating outlandish thumbnails and titles and the whole sort of big finance community space for doing that, I can't necessarily knock the insurance salesman either, right? Because again, at the end of the day, people got to eat, they have to pay their bills and things of that nature. And it is your job to do the research before you do buy something. Just please, please, if you get something from this episode, like please make sure that you do your research on whatever link you click, whatever video, stock tip, yada, 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 that's out there, because there are a lot of people that feed off of a lot of creators, right? That feed off of this sort of scarcity mindset when it comes to finances. I think if I were to list out things that are the most important things in the world, yes, you should learn how to save, but even before that, learn how to make more money. Like that's why we
mhm.
have this podcast, because when you start making more money, then you can talk about saving. But if you don't have any margin to be able to save, like saving an extra $3 here, $5 here, it's not going to help you. But
Get the
finding a way
damn
to make an
latte.
extra, exactly, right? Like, but finding a way to make an extra 10, 20 grand a year, like that is life changing, or that can be life changing for a lot of people, right? So whether it's content creation, whatever it may be, um, that would be my advice, is the first advice out there. Now, if you are making good money and you are going into debt, then start learning about personal finances and stuff like that. Um, and again, that's why I trust Reddit more than I do typically YouTube and stuff like that. I'll find an interesting topic about on Reddit. It could be like a flow chart like this or whatever, and then I'll start doing more and more research on it. But I just know that the person Grace Ling 02510 on Reddit is not trying to sell me an insurance product, not trying to sell me on a course or anything like that. So I can trust them a little bit more. I'm not saying that they're going to be right, but I can trust them a little bit more. And that's my entry point into the personal finance space.
When you say do your research, how do you personally do your research if something you learn on Reddit is correct?
So going onto Reddit, right? And then it's like, okay, let's say this flow chart, right? I want to go on this flow chart. What I'll then do is I'll type in a specific segment within that flow chart. So it talks about like Roth IRA, right? Roth IRA, 401ks, things like that. And so those, let's just say those are foreign letters to me and numbers to me. I will look up like 401k versus Roth IRA, and then I'll find either 5 videos, 10 videos on it, or 5 or 10 like blogs posts on it. and I'll read through and compare what I see. Because usually, even if someone is trying to sell you something, right, like there are some bits and truths to it, but I think you need to cross reference it with multiple different places to see what's true versus what is exaggerated, right? Like, I mean, we've talked about credit card points here, right? And you can go on a TikTok right now and you will see that, oh, I just booked Emirates first class flight from Miami to Rome for 80,000 points or whatever it is. And you might be sitting there with like Amex points and thinking, wow, I got 100,000 points from the sign up bonus. I can go and do it. But what they don't tell you, right, is there's little availability out there, right? So it's going to be really hard to find that flight. What they don't tell you is if you book it on Emirates, you have to pay a lot of taxes and fees. And sometimes those taxes and fees can be like $1,500. And so when you're paying $1,500, that kind of defeats the purpose of you using your points sometimes, right? Because you can
Hmm.
take the economy flight. Um, and so you wouldn't know that unless you go out and find other videos that explain it a little bit deeper or some blog posts that explain it a little bit deeper. And so that's how I do my research. Obviously, like ChatGPT and stuff is very helpful too. But again, always double, triple, quadruple check your work when it comes to any finance research. 100%.
Mm. Yeah, I agree. I also ask a friend who has more experience than I have in that, on top of like as one of the resources I have. So I know my friend usually they're there to help me, and they'll just give me whatever information they think is correct too. Um, but
Yes, that's so important.
yeah. So what are your favorite Reddit threads to follow for finance advice, or do you just Google and then your question and then Reddit?
So like right now, like I said, I understand like the basics of finance, right? Like I understand match your employer match. That's basically free money, right? That's 100% return no matter what. 401k versus Roth IRA. If you're in a high tax place like California and New York, max out that 401k, right? Because that lowers your tax bracket. Roth IRA, if you think that your taxes are going to be lower now and higher in the future, then max out your Roth IRA, right? So, like, I understand pretty much most of the basics out there. Where I go to for Reddit now is like chubby travel, credit card like turning stuff, Chubby Fire, Fat Fire, and Fire. And the reason that I go to those Reddits is because they talk more about what it takes to have in your bank account to live a certain level of life later on in life. Like the whole concept of retiring early, like let's just say instead of retiring at 65, you retire at 35 or 40. And so how do you make sure that the nest egg that you've built up is big enough to last that 30, 40, 50 year time frame um, that you need it to last, right? And so those numbers give me ideas of what I need to hit in like my bank account to be able to live the lifestyle of early retirement. And like we kind of talked about that on previous episodes too, of like my number is that 10 to 20 million mark. That's where I got that number is just doing research within those threads. And honestly, some of those stories are really inspiring. And it's like, dang, that's where I wish I can go or I hope to go later on in life.
You got this. Yeah, I'm working
But a lot
towards.
of that, like a lot of the chubby travel and stuff like that, like again, savings and stuff is important, but you have to increase your income,
Mhm.
right? Like at the end of the day, you have to increase your income. That's why when Zach is talking about how he was making like 600K and his like bi-weekly paycheck was what was it like 25K or whatever, like that is insane. But you hear those stories in these chubby travel, fat fire and stuff like that Reddit threads. So it doesn't seem as insane because that stuff is out there. You just need to figure out where it is, get inspired by it, how do you find it, and kind of finesse yourself into that space.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that. I'm gonna check out those Reddit threads as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like I
What
don't
about
ever
you?
want to retire. Oh, oh,
Who are
go ahead.
big like in like who are big influences for your personal finance stuff?
Oh, I also really like this other creator, Vivian too from Your Rich BFF. So I can dive into her, but I guess like kind of answering your question about influence with personal finance stuff. Um I used to read a lot of books. I still read a lot of books about finance. I actually only read nonfiction books now. I've only read nonfiction books the past 10 years. Um, and most of them, 90% of them, are happen to be personal finance. And the book 4 Hour Work Week really inspired me to be time rich. Um, kind of like having a goal where I am free to do whatever I want with my time. I personally don't think I will ever retire because I love building stuff, but I don't like doing things I hate doing. So I'm trying to like, for example, I don't like driving. It'd be cool to get a personal driver. My boyfriend is a personal driver, actually. Um,
Passenger
um,
princess.
yeah, passenger bunny. Um, yeah, I feel like my key takeaway from spending years just consuming these things is I never want to be a day trader because it seems stressful. It's like you're not time free. It can make a lot of money if you know what you're doing, but you're bounded by the stock market. If you're in Pacific time, you had to wake up at 4 a.m. for the stock markets, or 5 a.m., something like that, for the stock markets to open up, and just seems like a horrible life. I can't go out at night. Um, Instead of like crying over like my expenses or my rent, I'm just like, how do I make more? How do I diversify my skill sets to make more money? So I try to like really grow in content creation, negotiating skills, um, like writing skills, storytelling skills, filming, acting. I try to become a model too. I got my model photos yesterday, my friend. So
Saw that. I saw that.
yeah, thank you.
It looked
So
good.
like,
Well done.
yeah, thank you. So where my mind is at right now is like, how do I aura max myself, and also my skills, so I can make more money, like negotiation. Also, the prettier you look, the more money you, the more people want to talk to you, which leads to more opportunities. And I know this for a fact because I used to dress like a tech bro, and now I try to put more effort into the way I look and the way I present myself. The inbound has been like, I don't know, at least 10x more, honestly. Like at events, people come to me. I don't even know them, but they just like my outfit. They come up to me. Not I like barely have to go up to anyone anymore, which is insane. Which is like the opposite. So no, I think where I stand personal finance is like it's not always numbers driven. There's like many creative ways to make money, but skills like negotiation, speaking, like negotiation is really the thing. Like negotiation in terms of negotiating your salary, your brand deals, negotiating like house prices, your car insurance, your internet bill. Everything in life is negotiable. And sometimes it's like negotiating to pay more, but also playing defense a little bit, like negotiating. Um, I guess like with my accountant, I'm trying to write off my whole house actually because I film content everywhere. So I'm also like trying to find ways of like not play offense, like make more money, but also play defense, like finding ways to save on taxes, like setting up an LLC, putting everything in the business expense, working with an accountant. Also, like hiring an accountant is good instead of doing taxes by myself because it helps me save time. And they've been doing this for years. They know way more than I do about finance and money. Um, so I don't know. Like another life, I could be day trading, hating my life. Another life, I could be time free, but also, yeah, doing everything I want to do. So I help me like design the life I want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we're very similar, right? In that way of, I think for me, retirement is just more of a, to your point, like not having to do what I don't want to do, right? And
Mhm.
if I were to list out the steps of personal finance, it's like, okay, understand the basics so so you know what game you're playing, right? So know the words like Roth, 401k, all that stuff, right? If those words are foreign to you, figure that stuff out. Learn the vocab because that stuff will confuse you. And then it's like make more money because that's going to be your first differentiator, right? Like kind of to your, I think that's kind of probably the concept of your friend's book, right? Add another zero, right? I think
Mm.
of it, right? Like it's just like figure out a way to make more money. And then once you're making money, it's okay, how do you keep as much of that money as possible? And then that flows back into step number one, I think, right? And I think it's just really those three things, right? If you break personal finance down to like very simple things, those three steps. With that, let's dive into Vivian too, really quick, because I know you were doing some research on her. She's a good friend of mine, so I'm really interested to see what you've been able to like pull up on your end.
Yeah, I found Vivian a couple years ago. I really like her content. She explains in a very approachable way, And she even accepted my LinkedIn request a couple of years back too. Uh, honored.
Shout out Vivian.
Yeah, shout out to Vivian. So Vivian, her story is she actually grew up in a family of immigrants who had to save money, and then she ended up getting after college. She worked really hard to get a job in J.P. Morgan. So she was like doing trading and then sales at BuzzFeed, and she was getting a lot of questions about finance, HSAs, 401ks, all that stuff from her friends. So she started a YouTube or a TikTok actually in January 2021, which blew up. And now she I think a year later she became like a full-time content creator, and she also created a brand called My Rich BFF, which is also the name. She has like a podcast called Net Worth and Chill, which I love. I've been listening to it for a couple of years actually. She has a book called Rich AF, which I've also listened to the audiobook too. She has a newsletter called Enriched, um, and her book was also a New York Times bestseller. She also does a lot of speaking, and she has like an agent called WME, which is she's actually on the front page of her agent's website for speaking and stuff. So she really leveraged her background. So she came from like immigrant parents to like doing really well in her career and now doing really well in content creation, and really diversifying her income. Um, and I feel like what's really really great about her content is she teaches it kind of like Graham Stephan, but like in a really approachable way. So it's like easy for people new in the career to understand. It's like a good starter point. I've also seen a lot of her reels pop up on my LinkedIn and Instagram. She also like talks beyond finance about like what do you do when your flight is canceled, how to make more money back from that kind of thing. So like finance, lifestyle stuff. I don't know. I just like love her content. I think she did really well, just like sharing her knowledge, but also like making her content more relatable to a broader audience too.
Yeah, no, shout out Vivian. We did a Asian creator meetup at South by, I want to say 2 years ago, either 2 or 3 years ago when I hosted it with her, which that was my first time being able to meet her in person, like talk with her and everything like that. So she's great. I think her content does what it needs to do. I think she's really good at two things. Number one, I think she was able to catch the trend of finance like short form creators, right? She has the sexy background of like ex Wall Street, things like that. But I think a big differentiator point for her was she was kind of the only like Asian female talking about
Hmm.
finance at the time. I don't think I can remember any other ones off the top of my head, but if you look at also like high earners in the US, Asians are very high up on that chart. And so I think just seeing her resonated with a lot of that sort of Asian demographic on people who were paying attention to social at the time. So I think that helped her a ton. The second thing that she's really good at, and maybe this is from like her time at BuzzFeed, she is so good at branding. She is elite at branding. Like, she is not the biggest creator that WME reps, not even like the biggest name, but her branding is so good that she's on that front page, right? Even using terms like when she was starting to come up was she would talk about finance being, is it white, pale, male, and
Mm.
stale or something like that, right? I think that's what it was, or pale something along those lines, but it was so catchy, right? Like she's great at coming up with phrases like that. Net worth and chill. Whether she came up with that or whether the agency behind her came up with that, right? Like her branding is on point and like kudos to her. And she's one of the biggest, if not, I would argue, probably the biggest like finance short form creator out there. And I know she's transitioning into long form more and more, but she got her start in short form. And I think she's been probably the one that has leveraged that sort of 2020 to 2022 like crazy engagement on social on TikTok and stuff to be able to turn into something insane. And I can't imagine how much money she makes. Her wedding looked insane that her and her husband had in Italy and everything like that. So she's doing just fine, I would say.
Yeah, it's awesome. Yeah, I totally missed that train on TikTok, the 2020 and 2022 train. Um, I was too shy to post on TikTok. I
It was a
was
great
like,
time. It was a great time.
yeah, I'm like Sure, I think that time on LinkedIn is now. But yeah, shout out to Vivian. I don't know if this is accurate or not, but one time I remember reading an article. It might be about her or another girl. Um, she was like being really frugal about going like saving money, so she would like go on dating apps to get free food. Um, was that her or someone
Oh,
else?
interesting. I don't know. I don't know if that was her, but like I low
Okay.
key have done that before, not dating apps, but like I would when I was in college, I would take meetings with people who were older than me that were like they were networking meetings for sure, but I would
Mm-hmm.
also take them because I knew that they would likely pay for lunch, right, when we meet up or like pay for coffee. So that was how I would get some meals in
Mm.
college. Some good meals too.
Mm. Wait, it is her. Let me show you guys. So this article, I saw this a while ago, and I'm not shout out to Vivian on this. It's like I went on 6 days a week and didn't have to buy groceries for 2 years.
Look, it's a game out there. And
Yeah.
for the guys out
Uh-huh.
here, right, that are looking at this, you might be like, oh, this is so annoying, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, look, it's a game. You have to know the game that you're playing in, or you're gonna get played, right? I'm
Mm-hmm.
not necessarily saying this is the most morally right thing to do, but people do this. And you
Yeah,
got
no,
to
so
know
big
that
brain of
people
her.
are doing it.
I've done it too. I've used dating apps in the past to get referrals to FANG companies. So I've done it. But I also given back. I gave you referrals to companies too. Because I had some nice men give me referrals to FANG companies when I was just a student. And when we were getting laid off in 2022, I was giving them referrals. Anyways, but it looked like she, as a creator, you mentioned people had to exaggerate. So I think it was like exaggerated. She didn't actually like go on dates just for food. She just like jokingly
She
made the
probably did it a
controversial
few
videos.
times, right? But that headline is a lot better, right?
Yeah. 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 But yeah, this is so big brain of her. And to all single women out there, you can do this too. You can do this too.
Yeah, again, whether you agree with it or not, that's up to you. But again, I get why she put this story out there because it gets people going, right? As Jay-Z said, it's provocative, right? Like it gets people going, it gets the headlines out there, it gets her name out there better, more and more. She is a masterclass when it comes to personal branding and building your brand brick by brick, especially from a short form standpoint. And I think it's hard to find someone who has done something similar with the amount of following that she has, in my opinion. There are people with
Hmm.
bigger followings than her, but I don't know if there are people who make as much money as her and have a stronger brand than her.
Hmm. Yeah, I agree. Like, I can't think of. Well, my friend Rose, actually, Rose Han, um, I like watched like almost all of her videos about investing. I think she also has a strong brand. She has like pink hair in real life, and she makes financial education really relatable. Um, she also wants to come on the pod, so we'll also interview her. But her
Oh
book,
yeah.
At a Zero, that she's launching tomorrow, actually, on day of recording this podcast, is her journey from being $100,000 in debt to becoming a millionaire. An exact step she did, and she's really good at explaining. And I've definitely like watched a lot of her videos to like fill up my Fidelity Roth IRA and the funds she recommended. Now my IRA is still doing well. But yeah, it was cool because I met her at a YouTube event. Um, and my friend Eric actually introduced us, Eric Way, and Eric like knows basically every creator, and we just became friends since, and we hang out a lot. So it's cool because we live like 10 minutes away drive from each other in LA.
Oh, it's fire. That's fire. Well, yeah. All right. Anything else that you
Yeah.
want to talk about when it comes to like finance creators?
Who are your favorite finance creators? You know, you mentioned Reddit, but before Reddit, you mentioned you were like binging a lot of content. What other kind of content did you binge? What made you binge them? And
Uh,
yeah.
so creators, let me see. A lot of Graham Stephan, like at the beginning, right? When I would say, I think I started watching Graham Stephan when he was at like 150K subs. So very early on in his journey on his main page. And so was following Graham a lot. I would say another big one in the credit card space was Ask Sebi. If you know
Mm,
who that is, he's from the Bay Area. His content's
sounds
really good
familiar.
on,
Mhm.
yeah, on the credit card space. I actually ended up going to Disney with him randomly. Not with him, but
Oh,
like we had a group. Like I am like kind of in some of the like finance creator spaces because I've gone to like FinCon and stuff like that. Um JC Rodriguez, shout out to JC, ex declassified creator. He's killing it in the finance space right now. And then Matt Diavella was like adjacent to finance, I would say, because he lived like the minimalist lifestyle. And so there's like a point in time where I thought I would want to live a minimalist lifestyle. Not for me, but I thought that it was for me at one point. I'm trying to think any other ones. I think those are the main ones I would say. I did watch a lot of like short form creators, but I think most of my short form finance stuff is around travel. There is this one, I believe CPA, he's black on short form as well as long form. He makes amazing content around like how to save your money. For you and I, Grace, we don't make enough money for like those tactics to like make sense for us. But he's one of those sort of black hat accountants out there. He makes a lot of really interesting content of, oh, this would be really good if I was making $5 million a year. So we'll get there
mm,
one day, but it's like, yeah, I made $10 million last year, and I paid zero taxes. And people will get mad in the comments about it, which fair, right? But look, the tax code is written mainly for rich people. And when you do start making that capital, that's when you can really start to leverage it. And we will get there one day, but we're not there yet.
yeah, we'll get there. And these things is they don't teach you in school because they don't want you to know. Yeah, and instead
Yeah,
we
just like
learn fucking
backdoor Ross.
trigonometry. Yeah.
Yeah, like backdoor Ross and what's his name? Peter Thiel making like $1 billion off of his PayPal stock or something like that, tax free
Hmm.
or something crazy like that. Like there's all these sort of loopholes that again sound sexy on the outside, but in order for average people to be able to use it, like you have to be making a lot of money. Like don't
Hmm.
worry too much about those ins and outs. The most important thing I would say is like start getting your income up to the point where taxes are annoying. And then once taxes get annoying, that's when you start looking for these little loopholes and things like that. But please, like increase that income first. Taxes, paying more taxes is never necessarily like it's never a bad thing. That just means
Hmm.
you're making more money. Then you can get to the point of finding ways to pay less taxes. But the concept of paying more taxes just means you're likely doing better from a income standpoint.
Yes. Also, diversify your income. Like, let's just say you're a W-2 worker. What if you get laid off? What if you get fired? And also find ways to help make your money work for you. Invest. If you have extra savings, then invest it in. Not financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor, but invest in like IRAs or like index funds. Like diversify your investments and improve your negotiation skills. You can use it to negotiate higher if you're a freelancer, negotiating higher rates. If you're a W-2 employee, negotiating your next promotion, negotiating your next job. So there's so many ways that like increase your income, but most importantly, like and subscribe to How Creators Make Money. If you listen to us regularly, your net worth will increase by zero.
That should be our phrase. You listen to us and you'll increase your income by zero by the end of the year or something
Yeah,
like
by a
that.
figure. Yeah.
Yep. All right, bet. I appreciate y'all. Have a good one. Peace.
You too. Bye.